There's something coming, and nobody's talking about it, or very few people are talking about it. No one is seeing it. No one is grasping what it really means. Right after World War II, all of the men came home from service and began starting families. Thus, the group we know as the baby boomers. Well, that was a long time ago, and in more and increasing numbers, they are going into assisted care, leaving mass amounts of unoccupied housing around the country. It's going to be a problem very soon, and the government knows it, the banks know it. By 2030, elderly people will outnumber children in this country for the first time ever. They're doing something to modify how they are going to fill the method they're going to use to fill that housing, to fill that gap of income. And in today's video, I would like to share some things with you that I don't think a lot of people know. I'm a giant fan of maps, and this one is a great one. Now, you have 4 colors here, and it's the average credit score in every state. Because we all know that if you're going to get a house, you got to have a credit score, at least a good one. And if you don't, you're going to pay more, if you have the ability to at all. Secure financing for a home. Now, looking at this map, you would think, because green, of course, is, as far as a state goes, the highest average credit score, Minnesota, 715. And then blue, the next, is all these northern states. And then it seems, as you progress southward, they really get a lot worse. And then I guess the Midwest and different areas like this, they end up being the bottom. So why would that be? Why would credit scores be so much lower in the South? Well, here's something that, when you look at this map, is going to absolutely blow your mind. Here's a list of the 10 cities that have the highest credit scores. Are you ready for this? Number 1, the Villages, Florida. Median credit score, 807. Sun City Center, Florida, 789. 2 cities in Arizona, Sun City West and Green Valley, 787 and 781, respectively. Saratoga, California. Los Altos, California. And then one kind of outlier, Lexington, Massachusetts at 778. But then back to Florida again, 778. How can this be? How can these two things both be true? We see Florida down here in the next to the lowest category, and all of the South in the lowest category. Yet all, virtually, of the top cities with the highest credit scores are here. The Villages of Florida has an average credit score of 809, but the state has an average credit score of 674. 675 for Arizona, almost no difference. The lowest, I believe, is Mississippi, 652. You see, that's a problem for the banks. It's like, we have to loosen up our standards for the loaning. But there's a caveat in that. You see, the lower the credit score, the more they can charge for the loan. And that's where they're going to clean up. But they've got to have people. They've got to have people to put in those homes. If you saw what was happening in Florida right now, there would be, and well, I guess I shouldn't say would be, there is. To those who know, they are flocking to Florida because there are some absolutely beautiful houses, new, maybe 10 years old, that you can get for a song, figuratively speaking. Roman tubs, pools, most of them covered, marble countertops, vaulted ceilings, 3 and 4 bedrooms, 2,000 square feet. The same house up north will be 30, 40% more, even 20 years ago. Way more. Because there are so many of them sitting empty. Because the people that bought them late in life and are now too old. They can't maintain them. They can't afford them. And so they're going, or they're just dying, unfortunately. That's just the case. And they're leaving them. Huge neighborhoods full of them. I always wondered what FICO stood for. FICO stands for Fair Isaac Corporation. Notice it's not Good Isaac Corporation, it's Fair Isaac Corporation. Now I know it was the man's name, I get that. But I think it's indicative of what they're aiming for. See, they don't want people to have good credit. They just want you to have fair credit so they can charge you more. Because they're going to have to make more per person on all the new loans than they were making off the old ones. Because those older folks, when they went and got those loans, they got the absolute best rock bottom rates they could. Why? Because their credit scores were so high. And they could shop. If you look at the basis now that they use for a credit score, one is age of credit. How long have you had certain accounts? That gives old people a huge advantage. They could have opened a credit card when they were 30 years old, and if they're 75 now, they've got a 45-year-old account. Whereas somebody who's 40, who might be making 4 or 5 times what that older person is, they only have a 10-year-old account. And according to just the way things look, because they don't really take your income into consideration that much in a credit score. Payment history, age of credit, all that kind of stuff. How long you've had credit, and I'm trying to think of the other two. Credit seeking behavior, and there's a few other things. Utilization, how much of your credit you're using, all that kind of stuff. But it does, and that's the thing too with utilization, is that old people just don't use it. They absolutely don't. And it has a lot to do with voting too. It has, that group of people has this idea that things are either A or B, black or white, up or down, left or right. And that gives them solace in a world that's so different than what they grew up in. Having all of these different choices is sometimes confusing for them. But that's bad for us. Because having multiple choices is a good thing, believe it or not. And, in the long run, you would, of course, want to have as many options as you can to get the best decision for your life possible. But for them, it's not. Which leads me to this. This is the future of politics. Speaking to those people who still think that, oh golly, if we just got the proper R or the proper D person, we could just fix things. It's the other side that's the problem, really. If the other side went away, we'd do just great. You see, that's the trap of black or white thinking. This is, of course, pictures of upper left, Abby Martin, upper right, Adam Kokesh, lower left, Max Blumenthal, who I have been absolutely remiss in not covering as much as I should have, given that his involvement in the situation with Venezuela has been absolutely critical. And then if there was a way to put a visual parentheses around Tulsi Gabbard, I would. Because, boy, she says the right things sometimes. But then other times, she says things that just make you want to scratch your head. And this is why I think a lot of older people gravitate away from her, because you would have to be a thinking person, not just a black or white choosing person. There's only two kind of people in the world. There's those that agree with me and everyone who's going to hell. Those are the two kinds of people in the world, according to the old folks. And that's just the reality. Now, I want you to listen to this woman in her own words. And she's saying something here that you haven't heard politicians say, if ever, in a long time.
Here's the deal. Politics should not be a zero-sum game, but tragically, that's exactly what it's become. And it's polluted the whole nature of our politics. The point of politics should not be about doing maximum damage to your opponents just to win, because all that's happened, as has in the case of our current America, is that people get hurt and nothing gets done. So my stance yesterday, my vote, was opting out of this zero-sum game mindset and back into one of negotiation and compromise. We're stuck right now in this terrible scenario where everyone is trying to exact maximum hurt from their opponent for a quote-unquote win. My present vote was not passive. It was an active protest against the terrible fallout of this zero-sum mindset that the two opposing political parties have trapped America in. There's no winning here. Everyone is losing. Our country is losing. So if we don't break this stalemate we find ourselves in, America's done for. My vote and my campaign for president is about freeing our country from this damaging mindset so that we can work side by side to usher in a brighter future for all Americans.
Okay, so you listen to that and you think, okay, yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. The problem is the two-party system. But she says something in another video here where she talks about the Democrats being, quote-unquote, her party. This is my problem with the woman. You cannot possibly be narcissistic enough to believe that you can singularly, by yourself, no matter what your position is, go in to a party that's part of a corrupt, failed system that has destroyed our country over the last 70 years, and somehow, by your mere presence, fix it. Still hanging on to that chain around the neck that says D or says R. Nobody could do that. This is the problem and if there's anything that I could do to encourage my audience to talk about this using the right language, every time you hear Abby Martin or Code Pink or Anya Parampil or anyone else talk about quote-unquote anti-U.S. sentiments, scratch out the U.S. part and put in just the two letters D.C. or parentheses R, parentheses D. Because that's really what's going on. And we see that here. We really do. This either or thing. This is just a symptom of it. This idea of credit score based on behavior. Either you're good and you're part of society, or you're not. But what the banks are angling for is that middle place. That they want to keep you where you're not bad, but you're still just not good enough. Fair. It's one of those words that when you look at it on its face, you always want to teach your children to be fair and to expect fairness, but really it's a trap. Because life isn't fair. The middle ground is someplace you don't want to be. You don't want to be in the middle. But especially between two bad choices, which is what's going on right now. Because in this particular scenario, the really, 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 really good credit score, the real high end of the curve, makes it worse for everyone else. Because it's always a comparative thing. And the Chinese are way ahead of us on this, and we're going there. Don't make any mistake about that. Where they're going to start to analyze behavior, where you shop, when you shop, who you hang out with just based on the presence of your phone, where you live. I'm not under any delusion that my zip code, which is kind of a random thing to be very truthful, has a lot to do with the channel and its success. I didn't choose it on purpose. I didn't say I'm going to go live in this particular zip code so that I get preferential treatment. But if I drive just across the St. Johns River into a different county, literally 20 minutes away, you would think you were driving into a different country as far as that kind of stuff goes. It's a whole different thing. St. Johns County, Florida versus Clay County, Florida. You wouldn't think it would be that way, but it is. And the lines are getting more stark. That this right here doesn't agree with this should tell you everything that you need to know about that. And money and your future. The more these people leave the planet, pass on, whatever euphemism you want to use, the more difficult it's going to become to predict where the right place to be is going to be. And then all of a sudden, in 20 years or so, when they're all gone, and the age of our country becomes way younger real fast, we're going to see a huge shift. I know I have a lot of people in my audience that don't think they're going to be around then, but I remember a lot of talk. When was it? 2008, 2009, about how by 2012 the world was going to end, or we wouldn't be here now. There would be no such thing as 2019. And yet the years come and yet the years go. And you hear it now too. We don't have 6 months. We don't have a year. It's the equivalent of the guy with the sign on the street corner. The end is near. It's not about waiting for the end. It's about seeing what's coming. But this thing with Fair Isaac, with FICO and Ultra FICO, and this mass glut of homes that are coming on the market, it's going to change everything in the financial world. It's going to change our politics. It really is. Because where are those buyers going to come from? Or are we going to see another bank collapse? And I guess I'll just leave that there. Like, share, subscribe.